Amazing friends, I am about to lose my language, mom. But seriously, the developers of Genshin Impact just released a 22-minute video discussing everything that they have to say currently about Nod-krai, and it's a lot, and I am pumped. You should be pumped. We're pumped together, right? Okay, let's talk about it. Turns out, Nod-krai will be 6.0, so here I am eating crow and saying I was wrong. Friends, I spent 12 years in communications and marketing management, and so that is the way I think. I have to remind myself that I am not dealing with marketing managers here. I am dealing with game developers. I do hope that this Nod-krai thing does not run out of steam prior to September 10th. However, I will not walk back my points about Raiden Shogun. I will not walk back my points about Paimon. I will not walk back my points about the three Moon Sisters inhabiting current characters. But I will walk back the timing. As much as I know it is taboo to let your viewers go and do something else instead of watching your content because they may not come back, I would rather you all go into my description, find the links to those promo codes, and redeem them before you come back and watch the rest of the video. Now that you're back, friends, this is Flobius, also known as your 8-Bit Mom, here to discuss the mind-blowing 22 minutes that we just saw and was released by Hoyoverse about Nod-krai, the upcoming version of Genshin Impact, Song of the Welkin Moon. It will be released on September 10. That is a very obvious speculation because one of the promo codes, the very first one to be released, was Nodcry 0910. It could come earlier. I'm going to go with September 10 just because of that promo code. Art designer Crab and battle designer Aquaria walk us through this 22-minute video, which is essentially an information session put on by the developers to share their thought process of this upcoming of how they approach the next version of Genshin. In the beginning of Genshin Impact, it was just this wide open canvas for them. There was so much to do and so much to explore that they packaged it up neatly into two different ideas. Traveling through the different regions of Teyvat, and finding our sibling. Everything was broken up into one of those two niches. So you have the Archon quests that go from nation to nation and tell the general story of each nation, the general story of each Archon, and you have the interlude quests, which tell the story of finding our sibling, who is now royalty within the Abyss. The world was so big and evolved so quickly that throughout the past several years, the developers lost touch with many of the stories inherent to the beginning of Genshin Impact. There was so much, and they rushed through it to get to the next point, that they didn't tie up all of their loose ends. That is what is happening in Nod-krai, is just wrapping up a lot of things that happened in the beginning that they never really talked about again. This is going to happen by interacting with the 11 different factions with whom we've already been introduced. Because Nod-krai is at the edge of Teyvat, and because the developers want one centralized theme revolving around everything that's going on with Nod-krai and these 11 different factions, they decided to then wrap it up and tie it into something that is integral to all of Teyvat, which would be the three moon goddesses, the moon, the Song of the Welkin Moon, which has always been a universal tie between everything that's going on within this world. So Nod-krai, it becomes a place where all of these elements naturally converge to fall under the umbrella of the Song of the Welkin Moon. There's a self-governance in Nod-krai, and the reason it's put up that way is because Nod-krai is supposed to function as Gotham would for DC. Whenever characters get together from different portions of the franchise, they all seem to be in Gotham. So, in Genshin, it's the same theory. All of these different 11 factions are converging in one central location, which turns out to be Nod-krai. In past iterations of Genshin Impact versions 1 through 5, they used the geographical concept of nations to frame the map. This time, instead of nations, instead of archons, instead of regions, the geographical concept will be focused on people and their interaction with nature. For this year, they're changing how things are named. Instead of 4.0 being named after Fontaine, 5.0 being Natlin. 6.0 in all of its patches will be referred to as Genshin Impact the Song of the Welkin Moon. As far as who we will meet in Nod-krai, it'll be Varka. We will meet Varka as the first person that we know of in Nod-krai, so someone familiar. And the developers wanted us to go into Nod-krai with a little bit of comfort, knowing just one thing about it, which would be this one individual. whether or not it is just like the other outfits of the Knights of Favonius or if they have updated in any way, because wouldn't it be fantastic if 6.0 came around and Varka's a playable character? We would have that tall, male, 5-star character that a lot of us have been waiting for. And I think he'd be pretty BA. I see this guy with a giant warhammer just going to town on the Wild Hunt. I'm ready. Other things that we will come across naturally include the Fatui. Mabuika did tell us about a Fatui stronghold in Nod-krai that is searching for ancient moon remnants, and now this is interesting. They're searching for ancient moon remnants, which means that when that moon broke up in the sky, not all of it stayed in the sky, some rained down on Teyvat, and I want to find out where it is. Is it in Teyvat? Have we already experienced it? Have we already come into contact with it? Have we experienced pieces of that moon and we didn't even know it? Oh God, I really, really want to find that out. We also already know that there will be several harbingers there who have been recalled to work on Project Stuja, which I still don't know what that is. I'm still trying to figure that one out. I think it has something to do with a big cold. A big cold could be interpreted as, it could be interpreted as the Abyss taking over. It could be interpreted as all of the warmth in the world going out and everything just becoming cold and dark. That's kind of where my brain leads. Where does yours lead? The developers do talk about some of the other factions that we will meet, such as the Scions of the Frost Moon. Now, the Scions of the Frost Moon, they view celestial bodies and stars as their gods, so naturally they would worship the moon. Naturally, they would worship the 3 Moon Sisters. Interestingly enough, the Frost Moon Scions can also use magic. Now that's also interesting, because isn't a certain Fatui Harbinger trying to find a way to give magic to all instead of only a few people with visions being able to harness the power of the elements? The developers do tell us that in several of the sub-regions of Teyvat, the moon is a central theme. And we see it. We see it in Surumi Island. We see it in Ochkanatland. And if you pay attention, we see it in Dragonspine. Now, when you're playing in Dragonspine, if you look at the loading screen, you will see that the mountain of Dragonspine has that crescent moon atop it. So the clue has always been there. And if you think about all of the Teyvat subregions, you have Dragonspine and Mondstadt. You have Enkonomiya and Inazuma. Ochkanatland doesn't have its own map, but it's away from the rest of Natland. It doesn't exist within the same main land of Natland. So far, we have a theme of sub-areas relating to the moon. And if you look back at the chasm, the lore of the chasm is that the moon goddess's chariot crashed into the chasm, and that is where they died. So that opens up the question of whether or not the Remurians had anything to do with the moon and the moon goddesses. Is there something in the Sea of Bygone Eras that has to do with the Moon Sisters, the moon itself? It's worth running through that area again to take a look. I know I will be. Now we know the Frost Moon Scions that worship the moon. On the flip side of that is the Fatui, who are in Nod-krai to steal the power of the moon. And again, I think Project Stuja has something to do with being able to survive a total takeover of the Abyss. I think it has something to do with surviving a big cold that the Abyss could create, especially given their history of human experimentation. You also have the Voynich-Guild, whose main base is located in Nasha Town, which is described as a place where the traveler can commingle with lots of different people and personalities. The developers also tell us to look out for the Curatorium of Secrets, who accept commissions to handle problems that are difficult to solve or need to be solved quietly. Then you have the Lightkeepers and the Wild Hunt, who are enemies to each other and who represent the concepts of light and dark, good and bad. We're told that the events in Nod-krai are autonomous to the story because Nod-krai exists at the very edge of Teyvat, and after the catastrophe in Conria, that's what was hit by the Abyss first. It was the first area to have been corroded by the Abyss. The Abyss monsters there are on an entirely different level of strong, and that is how we get the Wild Hunt. Now, before anyone goes on some big escapade about The Witcher, the Wild Hunt has been around since the 1300s. It is Celtic lore that has dated back for centuries. It has to do with supernatural beings coming down to Earth on these quote-unquote hunts, where they will basically mow down and rampage and destroy everything in their way to get what they want, which is typically human souls. Within the context of Genshin, they are dark, they are abyssal, they can be fae, they can be abyss monster, they can be ghosts. The Wild Hunt comes from Old Norse folklore from the 1300s, so it has been around a long time before The Witcher. It is not a Witcher ripoff. The Witcher is a ripoff of the Wild Hunt. It is an army of ghosts that rampage through the wild and tear down everything in their path. Sounds very Abyss to me. On the opposite side of that darkness, we have the Lightkeepers, who, again, they serve as the light. They serve as the hope. They serve as the gatekeepers and the guardians of Nod-krai and Teyvat. And they keep the wild hunt at bay. There are paladins, friends. They are the paladins of Genshin Impact. And I am super interested to see if we get a paladin-like character. Some sword-wielding frontman who is both a warrior and a healer. I don't think we've seen that yet. We've seen a lot of DPSs who can heal themselves. We've seen some sub-DPS type characters like Jean, who can rally and heal, but they're not. She's not a paladin. She's not that main guy with the giant sword in front of everybody else saying, "Stand back, I've got this." I want a paladin. Maybe Varka will be a paladin. So essentially the story is, it's a lot of stories. It's 11 different factions coming together, being weaved together through the world of the Song of the Welkin Moon. This time around with Nod-krai, instead of observing how a civilization is reflected on its people, the design, the coherency, it will all observe how the people reflect on its civilization and landscape. The developers have moved from content about creating civilizations to content about creating individual people. Naturally, real life can never be completely divorced from fantasy, so there will be real-world elements sprinkled in, just not too many. One element you will see throughout the nation of Nod-krai, since it is very deeply rooted within myths of the Nordic nature, are fjords. A fjord is a long, narrow sea inlet with steep sides formed by a glacier. They are essentially submerged valleys carved out by glaciers that melted. They've subsequently been flooded by the glacier or flooded by the sea. These water bodies are known for the dramatic landscapes, often featuring steep cliffs or mountains on either side of them. They're commonly found in regions with a history of glaciation, such as Norway. Previous iterations of Genshin Impact, you'll see that we started out in Mondstadt, more of a medieval 15th century no technology location, and as we've continued forward with all of the regions through which we've gone, we see an uptick in technology every single time. Sumeru had the academia, Fontaine had the mech technology, Natlan had motorcycles, but they still slept in huts. It has continued to progress as we go on. We have gone from the Stone Age to the Bronze Age to the Iron Age. We're moving up with technology just as it naturally progresses through humanity and throughout the history of humanity. It is naturally progressing throughout this game. Now, the developers are asked in this Q&A, what do you see as the future for Genshin Impact? And the answers are vague. However, they do reference evolution and change. Both of them agree that evolving a game to be concurrent with the times means also changing that game to meet the needs of current players. One thing that we did not have 5 years ago because technology just prohibited it was active information. First couple of years of Genshin Impact, if you wanted to know backstory, if you wanted to know a lot of what happened with characters, you found out in books, you found out through character story details, you found out through dialogue. You didn't actually get to experience the actual lore, the actual backstory, the actual history of all these things that have been discussed. The developers hope to change that. They hope to take the backstory and the lore and the history and the ongoings of the characters and bring them to the present. Instead of telling us through alternate means what's going on in the story, they're going to show us and allow us to experience it for ourselves, which I think is just so cool. I have clearly put all of my other priorities on hold to get this out. I want to make sure that you guys get your primogems. Please check those links. Go to hoyolab.com. If you do not have an account, just sign up with them. It takes 2 seconds. It's free. You don't have to receive emails or anything like that from them. Just get it done because you will get a big chunk of primogems from them for free. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this video. I want to know if you think you've seen the moon in-game. I want to see the moon in-game. So guys, this is Flobius, your 8-bit mom, saying play nice and let Hoyo cook.